In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create an animated like and subscribe logo and use that in different videos. So the first thing you need to do is download Blender, and I'm using version 3.2.1, and you're going to need a program called Inkscape, and then some images that you want to use for your different like and subscribe animation. I use my images, I found them on Pixabay. So we're going to go in here to Inkscape, and we're going to find the image that we downloaded. So I'm going to open that up. And this is one that I used, this little thumbs up here. So just hit OK, and then select that image, and then go up here to Path, and then Trace Bitmap. And then it'll show up here as a little preview of the little thumb that you want to use. And all you gotta do is hit Apply, and you'll see that it created a copy. And then this one back here was the original. We can delete that, and then bring our new SVG logo up here. And what this is doing is creating all this data that Blender is going to use to actually create the use to make it a 3D model. So I've already saved this as a SVG file, but the other logo that I'm using is the subscribe logo. I found this on Pixabay. There you go. So this one is already red, but when I do this object trace bitmap, it should turn it to black. So there you go. Hit apply. So see, this is the new one. This is the old one. Delete that. And when you're working, before you export it, it's probably a good idea to go up here to edit, and then resize page to selection. There you go. And then you go up here to file, export, and then you're going to want to select Inkscape SVG, and then find the location where you want that file to actually be saved at. That's there. There we go. So we should have both our files ready to go now, and when we import it, you'll see how it's actually going to look. So go back here into Blender, and we can go ahead and just delete this default cube by hitting X, hit OK, delete that. And this camera, we're going to want to change this around to make it oriented a little bit better. So the orientation, we're going to have it 90 on the X, and then 0 on the other axis too. And then we're going to want to move this back to the center. Just hit 0. So now we know what we're working with here. And then we can just move this back a little bit, say 6 meters. That should be pretty good. And then just kind of get started here. So a couple things we're going to need to add on SVG import for Blender. So we're going to go ahead and then file, import those SVG files we just created, and then go back to the folder where you saved them. So there we go. We have our little thumbs up icon. Now right now it's just a SVG. There's really nothing else going on. But we're going to rotate it along the x-axis to get in the right orientation, and then scale it up just a little bit so we can see a little bit better. And then we're going to want to right click and then convert this to a mesh so we can actually start modeling it. Now if you go here, tab into edit mode, you'll see that we have all this new geometry we just created. We're going to box select everything, and then just hit A to make sure it's all selected. And then we're going to hit E for extrude, and I'm going to extrude this out 0.15. That looks pretty good. We can tab back into object mode, and now we got our 3D thumbs up logo. And then I'm going to change the color on it. We're going to lighten this up because it's pretty dark. We're going to have a dark background. So we're going to go here to the material tab, click on that, bring this up, make that white. So there we go. And this is our little camera that we were doing some positioning on earlier. So to see what the camera is going to see, hit numpad 0, and that'll bring it up. So we can see this is going to be the final rendered view. And we can hit G to move this where we want it to, and then hit X, Y, or Z to move it along an axis. GX, that looks pretty good. And I'm going to scale this down a little bit. We don't want this too big. looks pretty good. And right about there is pretty good. So next we're going to import the other logo we made. File, import SVG, there we go. And that was the subscribe one that we just uploaded. So same thing. Just give it a second. RX90, there we go. And then we're going to convert this to a mesh. There we go. And then we're going to hit E to get into edit mode. And we're going to select all the stuff here. A to select everything. And then hit E to extrude. That other one was 0.5, so let's see, we'll do 0.03. That looks pretty good. Tab back into object mode, and there you go. You can see that it extruded out with different lettering inside. So that looks pretty good. We're going to do one more step here to make this kind of pop out. First, we're going to change the base color. And since I already looked this up earlier, the hex code for the YouTube red is FF0000. And there we go. And we can crank up the other settings to make this a little bit more metallic. And if you want to see what it's actually going to look like in the rendered view, just click up here. Just give it a little more accurate color-wise. So it looks pretty good. The other thing we're going to have to think about too is where we have our light. So we can toggle the light off. You can see that this one almost disappeared. Turn that light back on. We're going to see how this looks in the rendered view. So we can see that that's still pretty small. We're going to scale that up and reposition it a little bit better. I want to have this kind of centered here. Cool, there we go. Maybe just a little bit bigger. There we go, that looks pretty good. I'm going to do a couple more steps here to make this really pop. So as you can see here, you can see right through it, and it's kind of hard to see. It doesn't really show up very well. Especially, this is going to be a transparent background, so it'll be even harder to see when it's actually rendered out and used in different videos. So I'm going to create a couple more objects here. That's way too big. Just hit S, scale that down. We're going to put an emission object inside of this logo here so the letters will pop out. And we can also animate it. So we're going to hit S, Y, scale it in the Y direction, scale a little bit in the Z direction. So we don't want it sticking out. We're going to actually hit the top view right there so we can align it a little bit better. GY. That looks pretty good. Scale it a little bit more on the x-axis to make sure it can cover all those different letters. To do that, we're going to take this object and we're going to add a new material. That's going to be an emission shader. So just hit this material button, and then on the surface, instead of principled, we're going to select emission. We're going to make that white. And I don't think the strength is too important. We're just going to kind of use this just to make it look more clear and more easy to read. And then we're just going to line this up. And there we go. We have our emission shader, and just be safe, we can crank this up a little bit too. We'll see how 10 looks. Cool, there we go. Now, as you can see here, the thumbs up icon is really hard to see, and that's because where we have our light. So we're going to change the light, we're going to move it back a little bit. move this down. As you can see it already starting to change a little bit there. And I already tried to turn these imported objects into a emission shader, but I was having a little bit of difficulty. And also we're going to have this light animated that's going to make it look cool as well. And I'm just hitting G, just like we were using before. Just kind of position this wherever it can, looks good. And then you can always hit 0 to get back into the camera view. And then from here you can also move it, which makes it a little bit easier. And then you can see how it's going to look. So you can see what the light is, and as you can see here, over here, under the light icon, when you select it, you can change the wattage, let's say 500, so it's not too bright. And then we'll see how this looks. That looks pretty good. We're going to do one more emission object in here for the notification bell. So the same thing, we'll just add another cube, and this is going to have a separate material that we're going to be able to keyframe later. And we're going to name that separate. So, you know, little things like that can go a long way to making your life easier. So we'll scale this down. Cool, that looks pretty good. Let's see, make sure it's centered correctly. That looks pretty good as well. We're going to add one more material. We're going to call this a bell. And we're going to make this an emission shader as well. Strength to 10. See how this looks. There we go. Another cool thing is we're going to also animate this. We can actually animate the color. So we'll go back here to the camera view. We'll see how that looks. So it's really not doing anything, but that's okay. We're going to start our animation now. So I want this light to kind of go from side to side. So first off, we're going to change the end frame to 48 because it's going to be a real quick, short animation that you can just throw in transparent background. So we got that. We got the little thumb. So the light is already selected, so we can hit I for location. And then we can go to the last keyframe. And then we'll hit G, X, and then move it off here to the side. So this is going to be a second location. So hit I, location. So we can go back, see how that looks. Looks pretty good. If we want, we can make this, tone down the roughness, make it more shiny. Or we can actually take this light to and then make it a little bit lower. It's not so washed out. I think that looks pretty good. Cool. So we got our light animated. We have our thumb. So the next thing we're going to animate the thumb. So I want to have it kind of go down, go up, and just kind of something you can actually animate with the sound effect as well. So in the first frame, we're going to actually want to start a keyframe, the initial keyframe, so it can move, so it has a reference point. So then we're going to go over here to say frame 3. I'm going to have it move down just a smidge. So we'll say 3 degrees down. Hit I. Keyframe for rotation. And I accidentally hit a wrong keyframe there. So I did location instead of rotation. So to be safe, I'm going to move this R, Y. move it back 3. And I'm moving this by an even amount, so that way I won't get off. And so I want this to be straight up and down here. So I'm going to change this to I, location rotation. So we'll see how this looks. Alright, so that looks good. So for frame 6, we're going to have it go up a little bit. Say 13. Put keyframe, location rotation. And then back at frame 12, we're going to have it go back to normal. So that should only have to go down 10. That looks good. I, location rotation. So that should be pretty good. So we'll see how this looks. That looks pretty cool. Something subtle. And then for, let's see where we want it. So I think maybe just as the light goes past, we're going to have it change the color. So we're going to have this bell. We selected that. Actually, that's going to be cube 1, but this is the color. So we can actually animate a color just like we did with, in a similar way like we just did with the thumbs up here. So for here, the color, we want this to be white. Start out as white and then change to yellow. So we can also animate it by this little button here. So that adds a keyframe. So we just added a keyframe right there at frame 30. And let's see here. So that's where it's starting from. So then the next frame, we want it to change to yellow. So it's going to be a pretty quick change here. So I'm thinking a gold, and then you can see the bell there. And then we're going to hit this little arrow to animate that, to add a keyframe. So we'll play this again, see how this looks. Get the thumbs up, and then boom, the bell changes to yellow. So we're pretty much done. So you have your little animated like and subscribe thing, and you can just add this in any of your videos, because it's important to remind people to like your videos and subscribe, and hopefully help grow your brand. So we're pretty much done here. A couple more things before we're going to actually have to export it now. So if you want to have this with a transparent background that you can use as kind of a video overlay, there's a couple settings we're going to have to change here. First, we're going to select your output where you actually want this to go, and select your folder. And then before that though, in film, these are going to have all these different settings, your render engine and all this. And we'll have motion blur, we'll select that. And under film, we'll have transparent, so you can see how it changed. We have a black and white checker background. So we should be good to go for that. Good to go there. Now, so the file format, we're going to change this to FFmpeg video. And as you see, it's only black and white or RGB. We're going to need to have RGBA in order to have that transparency. So in order to do that, we're going to go under encoding. We're going to change this from Matroska, the container, to QuickTime. We're going to change that. And then the video codec, we're going to change that to QT animation, so QuickTime. And then we should be good to go there. And that will give us this new option. So instead of black and white RGB, we now have RGBA. A stands for alpha, and that's what we want in order to get this transparency. So everything should be good to go there. And then all we can do now is go ahead and go up here to render, and then render animation. And then there you go. And then as you can see here, we have a little bit of that motion blur that makes it look a little bit more high quality. And then we're just let this run for a few minutes. Since it's only 48 frames long, it's almost halfway done. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So since it's already finished, I'm going to go ahead and put this animation as a video overlay throughout this video, so you can see and see what it's going to look like for you. And if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you want to check the description, I'm going to have this as a source file so you can download it yourself and use it in your videos. Or if you want to have your logo along with that, you can go ahead and do that too. So hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'm going to be making some more videos kind of related to business and marketing and how you can use Blender for that. Because I think this is really an amazing free software that people can use to kind of get jump started on their online business, whether it's called actions or anything like that, or you can even use this to make your own stock footage or stock photos you can use for blog posts or whatever. your imagination's your limit. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.